Hello there. Keir, the kneeler Starmer, meets Emmanuel Macron, with puppet master Tony Blair pulling the Starmer strings. So it was Tony Blair that orchestrated the meeting between President Macron of France and Keir Starmer. On the very day a proposal for a new EU membership system was handily unveiled, a system that could well be offered to the UK. What a coincidence! Not only was Blair pulling Keir Starmer's puppet strings, the recipient of the Most Noble Order of the Garter was probably playing ventriloquist as well. I wonder if he organised today's meet between President Macron and King Charles. And no wonder Macron looked so pleased and praised Keir Starmer to the roof after the meeting. It would have been music to Macron's ears, the thought of trapping the UK back under the EU yoke, with the UK taxpayer once again paying hefty wedge into the EU system. More money to splash about for everyone else. But there is a big reason why Blair's plot should flop, and more on that one in a minute. Now, Macron is said to be very keen on getting the UK into the Tier 3 of EU associate membership. And we found all this out from an insider leak via the Daily Mail. And get this, the pair met alone with no aides, so we can only take their word about what was discussed. And Starmer was very handsomely received by all accounts, being taken into the French presidential palace. Now, as we all know, Tony Blair is totally devoted to the EU and our membership of it. And insiders are now saying that he thinks that the time to strike for rejoining the bloc is in the run-up to the next general election. He thinks that rejoining the EU would be popular and a vote winner. Well, it might be on the face of it, until people start being told about ditching the pound sterling for the euro and opening our already ruined borders to the Schengen zone. Then there's the now increased cost of membership. Even as an associate member, the UK would be required to pay into the Brussels coffers, take our orders from the Brussels-fed fax machine and be under ECJ jurisdiction. It's when all that filters through to the general public that I think the electorate's mood will change. That's why this new 4-tier system has been invented, so that the likes of Tony Blair can say, look, all the benefits of the single market, but none of the drawbacks of full EU membership. They'll try to make it sound like the old common market, but it isn't. The whole system is designed to suck new members in. And here's the major point. Why wasn't the UK offered this magical associate membership after the 2016 referendum? I'll tell you why. Because the EU is a Hotel California system that the UK nearly broke fully free from. And remember, we were constantly told that you cannot expect the same rights and access to the single market as enjoyed by full member states. And nothing will ever convince me that anything on that front has changed. So how can anyone believe that we would be offered full single market access as an associate member without very, very onerous conditions being attached? Either that or the touted single market participation will be limited somehow. Either way, it will not be a good deal for the UK. That will never be allowed. Because in the same way that leaving the EU must be seen to fail, associate membership will never be allowed to equal full membership. It will be designed more as a straitjacket designed to keep your market close to the EU and make it harder for you to go and sell elsewhere. A straitjacket to hold your economic growth back, because they could never, ever allow associate member states to outperform full member states either in economic or trade terms. Once people hoist that in, there'll be no associate membership of the EU for the UK. Blair's little plot would be toast. But I suspect those involved, including Blair himself, realise this, but they won't be telling you that. They will try and fool you into thinking that we can have full single market access with no or very few conditions. Now, when you look at the details of these proposals, you realise how much power the UK government would be handing over to the Brussels elite. But that is the plan. This 4-tier plan has been authored by 12 French and German experts, and it involves tweaking the treaties, reforming the EU institutions, and a much larger budget, i.e., more money from net contributing member states for the Commission to trough on. And also be aware that according to Charles Michel, the President of the EU Council, the future of the EU means that on top of single market integration, it also means the integration of security and defence. Something that means foreign policy will then become a Brussels competency too. And this new proposal also means having a smaller number of EU commissioners. In the past, every member state has, by convention, had a commissioner. But under the EU treaties, the number of commissioners can be reduced. Remember that EU commissioners are there as EU executives and formally vow to not follow the interests of their own nation state. So nation states need not have one of their own in the EU Commission, or so the Europhiles would tell you. And further, Euronews.com says, the proposal suggests a small coalition of willing EU countries should be able to move ahead with policy and spending decisions, even if other EU members are not in agreement. And it goes on to say, it also floats a potential supplementary reform treaty that would allow the willing member states to move forward with treaty reform without the backing of more sceptical countries. Sounds to me like they want to form a country with lots of colonies. And the plans would also hit democracy, as it says that as the EU enlarged, the number of MEPs would stay the same, but voting in the EU Council of Ministers would have to move more towards majority, with individual countries' vetoes being removed. This is not shaping up to look anything like the EU we voted to leave. And being trapped in this web as an associate member, as we are slowly ratcheted back in, is not the place for the UK to be. Now, Olivier Costa, Director of Studies at the College of Europe and one of the report's co-rapporteurs, told Euronews, if Ukraine joins the EU, most member states will suddenly become net contributors and will not get any more money, and everything will move towards the east. So if we want to fix that situation, we need more budget. More budget? Where does that come from? Oh yes, that would just make the net contributors even bigger net contributors. But hey, it's only other people's money. But it's not just a bigger budget. This paper talks about the need for joint debt instruments. The EU Commission can spend money borrowed from the markets that in the final analysis are liabilities to all net contribution member states. Think about that one. The Germans have been fighting against that concept for years. But when the right vetoes are removed,